I travel a lot for work. Nothing glamorous. Mostly late-night drives across states, dropping into small towns, sleeping wherever I can find a bed. Over the years, I've stayed in every type of cheap roadside motel you can imagine. But nothing prepared me for what I experienced at the Black Hollow Motel. It was November 2021. I was driving through West Virginia, cutting across an empty stretch of Route 60. The rain had been relentless all evening, and the fog was so thick my headlights felt useless. I was exhausted, the kind of tired where every blink feels heavier than the last. I needed a place to crash. That's when I saw it. A flickering neon sign, barely visible through the fog. Black Hollow Motel. Vacancy. The place looked ancient. A row of 10 doors, paint peeling from the wood, curtains drawn tight across every window. The parking lot was cracked and overgrown with weeds, but strangely, not a single car was there. The office light was on. Inside, a man in his 60s sat behind the counter, his skin pale, his eyes glassy. He didn't smile when I came in. "You driving alone?" he asked, voice flat. Yeah." He slid an old brass key across the counter without another word. No check-in form, no ID, just a key marked with the number 7. The whole exchange left me uneasy, but I told myself it was just small-town weirdness. Room 7 smelled of mildew and something else I couldn't place, something metallic. The wallpaper was peeling, and the carpet was damp beneath my boots. But I was too tired to complain. I set my bag down and collapsed onto the bed. The springs groaned like something alive beneath me. I turned off the lamp, but the neon sign outside kept flashing through the curtains. Red, then black, then red again. At some point, I drifted off, and that's when I heard it. A knock. Slow, heavy, coming from the wall behind the bed. At first, I thought it might be the pipes. Old motels make weird noises. But then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. I sat up, heart pounding. The sound wasn't random, it was deliberate, almost rhythmic. I pressed my ear to the wall. Silence. Then, just as I pulled away, a voice whispered through the plaster, "Don't stay here." I froze. The voice was raspy, broken but clear. My blood turned to ice. I grabbed my bag, ready to leave, but when I opened the door, the fog outside was so dense I couldn't even see the parking lot. It was like the motel was floating in a void. Something in me told me leaving wasn't an option. Not yet. I shut the door, locked it, and sat awake till morning, listening to faint scratching from the walls. The next morning, I forced myself to believe it was a hallucination from exhaustion. I drove into the nearest town, a place called Meadowbrook, and stopped at a diner for breakfast. The waitress, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes, struck up small talk. When she asked where I was staying, I said, "Black Hollow Motel." The plate slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Everyone in the diner went silent. "You need to leave," she whispered. "Leave tonight. Don't go back there." When I pressed her for answers, she just shook her head, refusing to say more. That night, against all reason, I went back. The motel sat in the fog exactly as I'd left it, every window dark except mine. Around midnight, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, dragging, stopping right outside my door. Then, scratching. Soft at first, then frantic, as if something or someone was clawing to get in. I sat paralyzed on the bed, clutching the brass key like it was a weapon. And then, as clear as day, a voice hissed from the other side of the door. "You shouldn't be here." The knob rattled violently. The door shook in its frame, and then just as suddenly, silence. When I finally found the courage to open it, the hallway was empty, but at the far end, where the flickering exit sign glowed, I swore I saw a figure. Tall, thin, standing perfectly still, watching me. I slammed the door shut and locked it, my chest heaving, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold the key. I sat on the bed, staring at the door, waiting for the knob to turn again. But nothing happened. The silence pressed in like a weight. The only sound was my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. I don't know how long I sat there before exhaustion finally dragged me into a restless sleep. When I woke the next morning, the fog outside was lighter, but the unease hadn't faded. I needed answers. I went back to the diner. The same waitress saw me walk in, and I could see it on her face immediately. She didn't expect me to be alive. She poured my coffee without saying a word, but I pressed her. "What's wrong with that motel? Why did you tell me to leave?" Her lips tightened. For a moment, I thought she wasn't going to say anything, but then she leaned closer. "That place, it isn't supposed to be there anymore. The Black Hollow Motel burned down in 1973. Everyone inside died. 10 rooms, 10 people. They say the fire spread so fast, no one had a chance to escape. But the worst part wasn't the fire. It was what they found afterward." I swallowed hard. What did they find? She glanced around, then whispered. All 10 doors were locked from the inside. A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that the place was standing right now. I had a key. But before I could, she shook her head and walked away, refusing to say another word. The rest of the day, I drove around town asking questions, but nobody wanted to talk about the motel. Some even walked away when I mentioned it. By late afternoon, I was more confused than ever. If the motel had burned down 50 years ago, then what the hell had I slept in last night? Still, as the sky darkened and the fog rolled back in, I found myself driving down Route 60 again. And just like the night before, the neon sign flickered through the mist. Black Hollow Motel, vacancy. It was there, solid, real, waiting for me. This time, the man at the counter wasn't there. The office was dark, the chair behind the desk empty. But my key still fit. The door opened like it had been waiting. Inside, everything was exactly as I left it. My bag on the floor, the bed unmade, the faint smell of mildew. But something felt different, heavier, like the air itself was thicker. I tried to distract myself with the television, but the screen only showed static no matter how many channels I flipped through. Eventually, I shut it off and sat in silence, staring at the curtains glowing red from the neon sign outside. Around 1 a.m., the scratching started again, this time from the ceiling. Slow, dragging, like fingernails raking across the plaster above me. I stood on the bed and pressed my ear to the ceiling. The sound stopped. Then, 3 loud knocks directly above my head. I stumbled back, nearly falling off the bed, my breath caught in my throat. And then the whisper came again. "Get out." It was louder this time, more urgent. I grabbed my keys and yanked the door open, determined to leave for good. But the hallway didn't look the same. The walls were scorched black, the carpet burned and peeling. Smoke stung my eyes. I could hear faint screams echoing down the corridor. Room doors banged open and shut on their own. Shadows darted across the walls, human shapes writhing in agony. My heart thundered as I ran toward the exit sign, but no matter how far I ran, it never got closer. Finally, I burst through one of the doors at random and found myself back in room 7. The room was untouched, exactly as before. My bag on the floor, the bed, the flashing red light from outside. But something had changed. There was someone sitting on the edge of the bed. A man, his skin blackened, blistered, smoke still rising from him as if he had just stepped out of a fire. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and when he turned to look at me, his jaw unhinged, far too wide. The scream that came out wasn't human. It rattled the walls, shook the floor beneath me. I stumbled back, slamming into the door, fumbling for the knob, but the brass key burned hot in my pocket, searing my leg like it was on fire. When I finally tore the door open, the hallway was gone. Instead, I was standing outside, in the parking lot, gasping for air. The fog had lifted. The motel looked normal again, silent, still. But the window to room 7 glowed with a faint orange light, like flames flickering inside. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car until the sun came up, watching that window, waiting for something else to happen. But nothing did. By morning, the motel looked as ordinary as ever. I should have left then, driven as far away as possible. But I didn't. Some part of me needed to know the truth. And deep down, I think the motel wanted me to stay. I didn't sleep for the next 2 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man in room 7, his jaw unhinged, his eyes glowing with that unnatural fire. I kept telling myself it was a hallucination, a trick of my exhausted mind, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. By the 3rd night, I decided I had to confront it. I had to go back. I drove down Route 60, the fog creeping along the asphalt like a living thing. Every mile closer to the motel made my stomach knot tighter, but I couldn't stop myself. Something was pulling me in, something that wasn't entirely human. The neon sign flickered weakly as I pulled into the lot. This time, the office light was off. No man at the counter, no sign of life at all. But the key in my pocket burned like molten metal, reminding me that this place was far from ordinary. I slipped inside room 7. The air was thicker, almost choking. The smell of burning and mildew was stronger. My flashlight barely cut through the darkness, and for the first time, I noticed the walls, covered in scratches. Hundreds of them, deep and chaotic, as if something had been clawing to escape. Then I saw it, on the bed. Not the man from before, something else. Something tall, dark, its limbs stretching in impossible angles. Its face, a void. No eyes, no mouth, just empty darkness. I froze. My legs refused to move. And then it whispered. Not words, not sounds, just thoughts invading my mind. Leave. You shouldn't be here. Stay, and you'll never leave. I stumbled backward, my flashlight falling to the floor, flickering out. The figure reached for me, its shadow stretching across the room, covering the walls, the ceiling, even the floor. The air itself seemed to warp under its weight, pressing down like water. I ran for the door. The key in my pocket burned hotter than ever. I ripped it out and shoved it into the lock. The door wouldn't budge. Panic clawed at my chest. I tried the windows, locked, bars of darkness behind the glass. The motel wasn't just a building anymore. It was alive, watching me, shaping itself around me. Then the whispers began everywhere at once, behind the walls, under the floor, inside my head. Run, stay, run, stay. I screamed, my voice echoed, bouncing off walls that weren't supposed to exist. The figure advanced, its limbs writhing like smoke, reaching into my mind, trying to pull me apart from the inside. And then I remembered something the waitress had said in Meadowbrook. Leave tonight, don't go back there. I had ignored it, but what if leaving wasn't just about walking away? What if leaving meant something more, something I wasn't ready for? I forced myself to my feet and ran toward the door again, trying every ounce of strength I had. The key in my hand burned. The figure reached out with all its darkness. My mind screamed, "Don't open your eyes, don't look." I lunged for the door and twisted the knob. It gave way. I stumbled outside, gasping for air. The fog rolled over me, thick and suffocating. I ran without looking back. The motel was gone. Just the empty lot, cracked asphalt, weeds growing through broken concrete. No neon sign, no windows, nothing. For a moment, I thought I was free. I drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. But that night, back in my hotel in Charleston, I awoke to the sound of scratching on my bedroom door. Slow, steady, and in the corner of the room, just for a second, I saw it. A shadow stretching impossibly, limbs bending in ways they shouldn't. I bolted upright. My heart raced. The key from the Black Hollow Motel burned in my pocket, hotter than ever, as if reminding me that leaving wasn't as simple as driving away. The whispers returned. You can't leave. You will return. Sleep didn't come, and every night since, I felt it, watching me, following me, waiting. I know I can't stay in one place too long. Hotels, motels, even friends' apartments, none are safe. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I hear that voice again, calling my name, softer this time, but still unmistakable. Stay, don't leave. And I know one day I will, because the Black Hollow Motel isn't just a place, it's a hunger, it's patient, and it's waiting for me to come back. Since that night in Charleston, I've been constantly moving. Every hotel, every motel, every Airbnb, nothing feels safe. And yet, no matter how far I drive, the Black Hollow Motel finds a way back into my life. I see glimpses of it in the corner of my vision, in reflections, even in the fog rolling over empty highways. One night, desperate for answers, I returned to West Virginia. I told myself I had to face it. Maybe I could find a way to end it. Maybe I could understand what it wanted. The drive down Route 60 was eerily quiet. No cars, no lights, just the hum of my engine and the oppressive fog wrapping around the road like a living thing. The motel was there, waiting, worse than I remembered. The neon sign flickered violently, the red light pulsing as if it had a heartbeat. The lot was empty. The cracked asphalt reflected the light like a pool of blood. I parked cautiously, gripping the key in my hand. Its heat burned my palm. Inside, everything had changed. The hallway stretched longer than before, twisting impossibly, doors multiplying along the walls. Shadows moved on their own, darting just outside my field of vision. The air was thick with smoke, mildew, and something else I couldn't place, something metallic, like blood mixed with rust. I moved toward room 7. I had to see it again, had to confront whatever lived there. When I opened the door, the darkness inside seemed to reach out for me, thick and viscous, like I was stepping into a liquid void. The bed was gone, replaced by a swirling black mass that pulsed as though it were alive. The walls writhed with shadowy forms, faces pressing against the plaster, screaming silently. I wanted to turn around, to run, but my legs refused. They were rooted to the floor, as if the motel itself had gripped me. Then I heard it. Voices, hundreds of them layered on top of one another, whispering, screaming, pleading. Some were familiar, echoing the names of people I had known. Others I didn't recognize. And in the center of it all, the same voice as before. Stay. You belong here. The black mass shifted, forming a humanoid shape, taller than any man, its limbs stretching in impossible angles, its head tilting unnaturally. The eyes were empty voids, sucking in light, pulling me closer. I could feel its hunger, a cold, insatiable hunger that reached into my bones. I tried to run, but the hallway had changed. Doors slammed shut around me, windows vanished, the exit signs flickered and disappeared. The motel wasn't just a building anymore. It was a trap, a living labyrinth designed to consume those who dared enter. And then the whispers started inside my head. Not from the walls, not from the shadows, but from inside me. You can't escape. You will return. You are mine. I stumbled, clutching the key. The heat from it burned my hand to the bone. The figure advanced, its movements impossibly fast, though it seemed to glide rather than walk. Every step it took made the shadows writhe and grow, filling the hallway with tendrils of darkness that reached for me. I screamed, a sound that echoed endlessly, bouncing off walls that weren't supposed to exist. I swung the key, hoping, praying that it might do something, anything. But it passed through the shadows, leaving a faint scorch mark where it touched them, and the whispers laughed. Fool, you cannot fight me. I tripped and fell, my hand scraping across the warped floor. When I looked up, the figure was directly above me. It leaned close, and for the first time I noticed its mouth, or the absence of one. There was a gap, an endless black void where its mouth should be, and I felt the pull of it, like a vacuum tugging at my very soul. I closed my eyes, bracing for the end, but then a sound, a faint human sound cut through the darkness. A knock, slow, steady, a whisper, "Leave now." I opened my eyes. The figure paused as if it had heard something. I didn't wait to see more. I scrambled to my feet and ran blindly, following the sound of the voice that wasn't my own. The hallway twisted around me, walls shifting, ceilings stretching, doors multiplying, but I kept moving. Finally, I burst through a door and found myself in the parking lot. The fog had lifted slightly, revealing the cracked asphalt, the overgrown weeds. The motel itself looked almost normal, except the neon sign pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, and I knew it was still alive. I didn't stop driving. I didn't look back. The highway stretched ahead, empty and silent. But I knew the motel would find me again. I could feel it, waiting, patient, hungry. I've tried to tell people what happened, but no one believes me. Friends laugh it off, police dismiss it, but I know the truth. The Black Hollow Motel isn't just a place, it's a living entity. It consumes those who enter, and it waits for the ones who survive, knowing they will return. Sometimes when I sleep, I dream of it. The hallway stretching endlessly, shadows writhing, the whispers calling my name. And I wake in a cold sweat, the key burning in my pocket, the same heat I felt the first night. I know I won't escape forever, and deep down, I'm terrified of the day it finally catches me completely. I knew it was coming. Every instinct screamed it. I had felt the pull of the Black Hollow Motel every time I slept, every time I drove down empty highways. It had been patient, waiting for me to grow careless, to let curiosity or desperation lead me back. And finally, I did. I found myself on Route 60 again, the asphalt slick with rain, fog curling around the tires of my car. The neon sign flickered weakly in the distance. Black Hollow Motel. Vacancy. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and I felt it inside my chest. A pull. Magnetic. Inescapable. The lot was empty. Cracked asphalt. Weeds clawing through broken concrete. No other cars, no lights in the office, just the faint hum of electricity through the neon sign. The key burned in my pocket, hotter than it had ever been. It was as if it recognized the moment had come. I didn't step inside immediately. I didn't need to. The motel seemed to stretch toward me, growing taller, wider, darker. I could see shadows moving behind the windows, writhing and twisting, and I knew the figures I had seen before were not alone. Hundreds of them, trapped inside, feeding on the terror of anyone who entered. Finally, I opened the door. The hallway was longer than I remembered, stretching infinitely, walls lined with doors that seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at them. Shadows flickered across the walls like living creatures, whispering my name, laughing, pleading. I moved forward toward room 7. My legs trembled. Every step made the hallway pulse beneath my feet, as if the building itself was alive, anticipating my arrival. When I reached the door, the brass key burned so hot I could barely touch it. I inserted it anyway. The door swung open silently. Inside, the darkness was thicker than ever, like a liquid void that swallowed light. The black mass had grown, pulsing with life, writhing with limbs that defied human anatomy. Faces pressed against the walls, screaming silently, mouths opening and closing in torment. And in the center, the figure. Taller than ever, its limbs stretching impossibly, eyes like voids sucking in all light. I didn't hesitate. I raised the key and swung it like a weapon. The black mass recoiled slightly, hissing, and I felt a rush of energy push through me. The figure lunged, and I ducked, feeling the tendrils of darkness scrape my skin, leaving burns that went deeper than any physical wound. The whispers became deafening, echoing inside my skull. "You can't escape. You belong here." I fought to resist, but the pull was too strong. My knees buckled. The figure reached for me, its void face inches from mine. Then I heard a voice, human, urgent, clear. "Leave now! Run!" I followed it, stumbling toward the door. Shadows reached for me, clawed at me, tried to drag me back. But the voice guided me, a thread of sanity through the chaos. I burst through the doorway and ran down the hallway. The motel twisted around me, impossible angles, doors multiplying, ceilings stretching higher and higher. I ran and ran until I stumbled through another door and found myself outside. The fog had lifted slightly. The lot was cracked and empty. The neon sign pulsed faintly, but for the first time I felt a sliver of relief. I got into my car and didn't look back. But the motel had one last trick. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw it. Not the building itself, but the shadows moving in the lot where the motel should have been, watching me, waiting. I don't know how long I drove before dawn. The key burned hot in my pocket, and I could feel the whispers fading, but not gone. I reached a town, found a motel that was real, one that existed on maps, with lights on and doors that didn't move. I collapsed on the bed, exhausted, every muscle in my body trembling. I tried to sleep, but I could still feel it, the pull, the hunger. I knew it wasn't gone. The Black Hollow Motel doesn't vanish. It waits, and it hunts. Anyone who enters becomes part of it, a shadow among shadows, feeding its endless hunger. I write this now because I have to warn others. I've learned the hard way. Never stop for a motel in the fog. Never trust a vacant neon sign. And most importantly, never enter room 7. Because once you do, it doesn't just take your body. It takes something far worse. Something you can never get back.